Instead, so far, the investigation has simply exposed itself as corrupt and mismanaged. Newly released text messages from FBI agent Peter Strzok suggest high-level FBI operatives were not on the level about the investigation from the very beginning. Fox chief intelligence correspondent Catherine Harris joins us now with details. Catherine.
Well, thank you, Tucker. The text messages are a window into the FBI's highly charged internal politics under then-Director James Comey and suggest at least one senior investigator was skeptical the Russia probe would uncover wrongdoing. 2 days after Special Counsel Robert Mueller took over the probe in May, now demoted FBI agent Peter Strzok and now reassigned FBI lawyer Lisa Page discussed the merits of joining Mueller's team. Strzok tells Page, "You and I both know the odds are nothing. If I thought it was likely, I'd be there, no question. I hesitate in part because of my gut sense and concern there's no big there. In another more cryptic text, Strzok writes, "I personally have a sense of unfinished business. Unleashed it with MYE, that stands for mid-year exam, the FBI's code name for the Clinton email case. And now I need to fix it and finish it." Another Republican who read the text said the FBI officials talk about a secret society within days of President Trump's victory.
There was a society of at least two people, to include Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, that had a desire to keep Donald Trump from becoming president, and then an expressed intent to work against him after he was elected president.
The FBI blames a technical problem for a 5-month gap in the Strzok-Page text and would not comment to Fox News on whether the Bureau has taken physical custody of their phones for a forensic review that could recover those texts. Tucker.
Catherine Harris, thanks for always being on this. Joe DeGenova is a former U.S. attorney in D.C., and he joins us tonight. Joe, thanks a lot for coming on.
My pleasure.
So on Special Report a little over an hour ago, Ron Johnson, the head of Senator, who's head of the Homeland Security Committee, suggested that the secret society referenced in these texts may have been an actual thing, and it may have met off-site, away from the FBI secretly. We don't know more than that. What does this suggest to you?
It suggests, as we've said from the beginning, that there was a brazen plot to illegally exonerate Hillary Clinton, and if she didn't win the election, to then frame Donald Trump with a falsely created crime. Everything that we have seen from these texts and from all the facts developing shows that the FBI and senior DOJ officials conspired to violate the law and to deny Donald Trump his civil rights.
What would be the motive for that?
The motive would be that they didn't like Donald Trump, they didn't think he was fit to be president, and they were going to do everything within their power to exonerate Hillary Clinton, and if she lost, to frame Donald Trump with a false crime because they didn't think he should be president.
What do you make of the claim that 5 months of text messages between Strzok and Lisa Page have somehow disappeared, as Lois Lerner's emails did, as Hillary Clinton's emails did?
Well, as an old United States attorney who has watched obstruction of justices over the years, that explanation from the Bureau is ludicrous. Those texts were either purposely destroyed, period. They were purposely destroyed. Moreover, they exist somewhere. I can assure you the NSA has them. Other companies have them. Verizon has them, AT&T. And if the Bureau can't figure out how to get them, they're in worse shape than I thought they were.
So you don't buy it at all?
No, absolutely not. Those texts exist, and if they don't exist, they were destroyed.
So you suggest this is obstruction of justice. How do we proceed if the country's chief law enforcement agency is itself guilty of that?
Well, the Attorney General needs to appoint a special counsel, and if he doesn't want to do that, he needs to make sure that the criminal division of the Justice Department impanels a grand jury immediately and starts putting in that grand jury under oath Comey, Strzok, Page, Baker, McCabe, everybody, and senior Justice Department officials, Sally Yates, Bruce Orr, and others, John Carlson, the head of the National Security Division, all of these people need to be in front of a federal grand jury. We have long since passed the time when we need to have just congressional investigations for this. Make no mistake about it. A group of FBI and DOJ people were trying to frame Donald Trump of a falsely created crime.
Is there any possibility the Justice Department has already impaneled that investigation?
Oh, I certainly hope so, because we're long past the time when that should have been done. I hope they have. If they haven't, I can't imagine that they're not about to do so shortly.
Why is it so hard for the FBI to respond to legitimate and lawful requests for information from the Congress, which provides oversight?
It shouldn't be. I don't understand it. I must say Christopher Wray's performance has been extremely unimpressive with regard to how to lead an agency at a time of crisis, how to respond publicly, how to respond to Congress, how to carry out your duties. It has been an abysmal performance by Director Wray.
Strzok and Page apparently still working at the FBI headquarters here in Washington. Does that strike you as odd?
Strikes me as very odd. I cannot conceive of circumstances under which agents in these conditions, with the kind of text messages that they exchange, knowing what we know now about the criminal activity involving the compromising of National Security Agency intercepts of 702 data involving private American citizens. I can't imagine how they can still be on the premises.
Would they be cleared to see classified information?
I certainly cannot imagine how they would still be cleared to see classified.
But they have access to former colleagues, of course, or their present colleagues in the building.
Yes, members of the secret society no doubt continue to still talk to one another.
What can be, I mean, are there civil service rules? I mean, how could that be at this point?
I'm afraid only Christopher Wray knows why they are being allowed to stay in that building.
And last question, since you have been here for a long time and worked in this world for a long time, are we right to have real questions about the integrity of our justice system watching this? Regrettably, we are at a point now where the FBI has lost almost all of its credibility and, regrettably, its integrity as a result of the conduct of James Comey, who remains America's most dirty cop. Terrifying. Joe DeGenova, thank you very much for that. Thank you. Richard Goodstein advised Hillary Clinton during both of her presidential campaigns. He joins us on the set now. Thanks a lot, Richard. Thanks for coming on. So the way it typically unfolds between you and me is I say, can you believe this happened? And you say, Hillary Clinton did nothing wrong. Right-wing crazies making up stories again. So let's try something new. We're going to do what we call the revulsion test. I'm going to read you a series of statements which are true, and you tell me if they bother you. How's that? Here we go.
Let's try it.
Does it bother you the Justice Department decided not to charge Hillary Clinton in the email case before completing the investigation into her or interviewing her personally? Does that bother you?
What doesn't bother me is the fact that every good lawyer, every good prosecutor, every good judge, before the decision is handed down, pretty much kind of decides what the facts of the case and the law would be. And basically, because they have a deadline, they're not going to write it the morning of, right? So they want to write a scholarly document that's well received. So of course, they know what the evidence is going to be. They knew what Hillary was going to say. This was no surprise. This was the suggestion that somehow or other that what she was going to tell them was going to be different when they had all the evidence in.
Well, this is so striking. I mean, so they knew, as you said, they knew what the evidence was going to be before they gathered it all, and they knew what she was going to say.
Well, they
hadn't so I guess the question arises, like, why have an investigation at all? Why interview anybody?
I didn't say
because we know what we know. So why don't we just charge people we believe are guilty and exonerate those we think are innocent?
So they had access to tens of thousands of emails, right? And they had testimony from plenty of people. And as is the case, you end up having kind of the big fish last, right? And you pretty much know by that point what that person is going to say because you have all the documentary evidence to support it. So it's not the case that
how would you know what she was going to say? I mean, unless you're clairvoyant. I mean, this is a living person. You ask specific questions. You don't know what the person's going to say. I interview people for a living. I don't know what they're going to say.
Of course, right. And all I'm saying is they had the documentary evidence. She had it. She prepared herself for it. Look, can I just say one thing? Donald Trump said he wants the Hillary Clinton test, right? So when he's questioned, he wants to have it, whatever he said. I agree. The Hillary test should be 11 and a half hours, under cameras, under the heat, just like she had for Benghazi. That's what he should do.
For Benghazi, it's a different investigation.
Well,
I just, look,
11 and a half hours.
I'm just, look, I'm not, hold on. I'm not arguing that Hillary should go to jail. I'm arguing about the integrity. I'm concerned about the integrity of our justice system. And if we're deciding that people are innocent or guilty before completing the investigation into them or even interviewing them, I have concerns, don't you?
Look,
no, not in this case.
The suggestion that the FBI was somehow in her hip pocket is so twisted that most people would say, no, Comey broke the rules on July 5th. Comey broke the rules by releasing the letter, and he broke the rules by not telling the public what he was in on about Trump's.
So Comey's bad. You're not going to hear me defend him. I'm just talking about the process here. So, you're not bothered by that. Here's the second question. Are you bothered by this? This comes from an FBI agent who was investigating Donald Trump, and I'm quoting, I want to believe Trump can't get elected, but I can't take that risk.
Right.
Does it bother you that Peter Strzok, the FBI agent official who wrote that, was investigating Trump at the time?
You know, he said awfully bad things about Bernie Sanders and Chelsea Clinton. Look, does it bother me that somebody working in the FBI
what do you think that
has
means?
Political views? Again, he had said equally unkind things about people
but
with the last name of Clinton.
Let's just be totally clear. It's not about his political views, which he's entitled to. And like most federal employees, he's liberal. I get it. I live here. He is involved at the highest level of the investigation.
No, he's not. Robert Mueller, who's a lifelong Republican, is the highest level of the investigation.
Okay.
Peter Strzok was in every interview with somebody else from the FBI.
Okay, but you're making my point. He's not running it. I didn't say he was.
Right.
But at the level below the guy running it, which is Mueller, you have Peter Strzok. And he is saying, and I'm quoting, I want to believe he can't get elected, but I can't take that risk. We don't know what that means. Here's what we do know. If that was written by someone investigating Hillary Clinton, I would join you in denouncing that as terrifying.
I guarantee you, if the facts were the Russians offered help, the Clinton campaign said, love it, the Russians proceeded to offer help, and that Hillary Clinton used that 100 times on the campaign trail, by now we would have impeachment proceedings, no question.
Okay, but
so if it was twisted,
right.
I agree.
Look, I want to believe he can't get elected, but I can't take that risk. This isn't a person in a position to influence the outcome with the full force of the federal government behind him, to influence the outcome of the Trump presidency.
Well, no.
Yes, he is. Of course, he is one of the officials running at this point.
The Trump presidency is going to rise or fall on the facts.
Okay.
That Robert Mueller comes
So
it
doesn't bother you that the guy said, I can't take the risk that Trump's going to get elected, says the guy investigating Trump on behalf of the FBI. Doesn't bother you.
This guy sent 50,000 text messages in 5 months, 10,000 a month. How was he even getting work done?
Where are they? So this is my third question. So we've been told by the federal government that they've lost 5 months of text messages between Lisa Page and Peter Strzok. Do you believe that? Does it bother you that they could have, quote, I'm not sure how you lose a text message, since my impression was they endure forever.
Right.
If you try and cheat the IRS, you'll find out they're there.
Agreed.
They lost them somehow, and we're supposed to nod in kind of bovine acceptance. So sure you did. Does that bother you at all?
I'm not nodding. No, I hope they find them.
No, but what do you make of the claim that they lost them?
Tucker, there's all these addled conspiracy theories as a distraction from what it is that we're finding out with each passing day, each passing plea of guilt. Okay. That's what this is about.
Hold on, no. I think we can have multiple conversations simultaneously. And as I've said from day one, when they find the text from Vladimir Putin to Donald Trump saying, I pledge to get you elected, I will be the first to denounce Trump. It may not be that, but it may be a conversation between Manafort and Trump. At the same time, you would hate to think that a byproduct of this investigation is the corruption of our justice system. And I'm beginning to think, based on a lot of data points whose accuracy you have not contested, that we have a real problem with the way we investigate political crimes, both of Hillary and of Donald Trump.
In the run-up to the election, when Rudy Giuliani was talking about FBI agents in Brooklyn, these were not people who were friendly to Hillary Clinton. He was getting inside information that was information helpful to Donald Trump. So I agree there's a problem.
Oh, okay.
But it's not a problem that cuts in Trump's favor.
So 1 out of 3 bothers you. You're a very tolerant man, Richard Goodstein. Thank you for joining us. Sure. Illegal immigrants blockaded Disneyland to demand citizenship. Why aren't they being deported immediately? We've got details next. Well, a small mob of DACA beneficiaries showed up outside Disneyland in Anaheim, California, and blocked an entrance. They chanted slogans and prevented families from entering until law enforcement finally removed them. Watch.
Can you tell me why you guys chose Disneyland?
This is where dreams come true, right? Disneyland is where your dreams come true. And we want our dreams to come true.
So at least one group of illegal aliens isn't hiding in the shadows. Instead, they're screaming at tourists at an amusement park. Imagine what it takes to act this way. You show up in a country that's far better than the one you left. That's why you came here. Wouldn't you be grateful? These people are not. They're angry. They're entitled. They literally have no right to be in America, but they're full of menacing demands, and not just at Disneyland. We've seen a bunch of demonstrations like this all over the country in the last year. People demanding immediate citizenship and the free stuff that goes with it, some of them waving foreign flags. The question is, would any other country on earth put up with this? Even sensitive beta male Canada would probably draw the line at this. Try sneaking over their border illegally and blocking access to Niagara Falls. They'd deport you. They'd probably apologize as they deported you, but they would deport you. It's worth remembering that a lot of our immigrants are not at all like these people you see on the screen. They are grateful to be here. They work hard. They mind their own business. They add a lot to this country. Let's find more people like that. The people you just saw on the tape, we should track every one of them down and boot them out of this country tonight and for good. They're exactly the kind of people we don't want here. Of course, those protesters won't be deported. No one ever is. The current Democratic Party believes enforcing borders is a human rights violation. For 2 days, House Democrats have been savaging Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer for allowing the government to reopen without amnesty for people here illegally.
You said Senate Democrats are getting their butts kicked on the shutdown debate. Is that true?
I'm not sure the exact words, but the sentiment that we did a poor job in messaging is correct.
I'm disillusioned. I think they're caving. Democrats are pretty good at articulating values, but a little weak on defending them.
Kathy Sheehan is the mayor of Albany, New York, the capital of that state. It's also a sanctuary city, and she joins us tonight. Ms. Mayor, nice to see you.
Good to see you.
So I can't resist asking about the Disneyland video that we just showed. People here illegally blocking entry to Americans in an amusement park because they're demanding citizenship and free stuff. What country would put up with that other than ours?
Well, listen, this is a country that values free speech and the right to protest. And these are young people who feel that they were given a promise and that DACA was a way for them. These are young people who were brought over here as children, not by their choice, as a way for them to have a pathway to citizenship. And this is a great country in that we allow people the freedom to express themselves. Why would we allow
foreigners? By the way, why would you want someone in your country who's not grateful to be here, who's demanding of American citizens the right to vote and get benefits? Don't you want people who are grateful to be here and want to add?
You know, every immigrant that I've ever met is grateful to be here. That doesn't mean that they're not going to stand up for their rights. And, I joined thousands of people across this country in protests that happened on Saturday from people who were born and raised in this country and who've been here for generations. That is one of the hallmarks of our great society.
But they're not Americans, these people.
But they have a voice. They have a right to a voice. Just because you're not from here doesn't mean the Constitution doesn't apply to you.
If you're here illegally,
that's well settled law.
No, it's not actually. If you broke our law to get here, you don't have the rights that an American citizen have. Where do those rights come from then?
So when you are here, you have constitutionally protected rights, and I think that when we look to polarize this conversation by pointing these people who are here, brought here by their parents, without their choice, and demonizing them, we really turn the conversation to an us versus them.
Whoa, slow down. They block the entrance to Disneyland, okay? I didn't do that. They did that. Do they bear any responsibility for doing that?
And there are Americans who use their right to free speech to block entrances, to shut down roads, and to protest things in this country.
Do you see
and whether you were born here or you weren't born here,
it's not a matter of being born here.
You have that right.
No, it's a matter of citizenship. Citizenship is meaningful to most Americans. They think you're different if you're a citizen.
And they want to be on a path to citizenship. Okay. These are young people who are working hard and who have worked hard.
No, these are people who in the middle of a weekday were blocking Disneyland. So don't tell me they were working hard. So a new Harvard poll shows that 4 out of 5 Americans, 81% of Americans, want less legal immigration, a lot less. Where were their interests? Where are their interests in the modern Democratic Party? 4 out of 5 Americans of all political parties want less legal immigration. Are you aware of that?
Well, and I think that that's really a stunning number, and it demonstrates that we need to do a better job of communicating how important immigration is to our cities and to our country. And you look at a city like Albany, New York. We have an aging population. A lot of the growth that's happening in our city is happening because of immigration. The #1 complaint I get from employers is that they can't find people to work. And so we've got a real workforce development challenge in the city of Albany and in the capital region, and immigration is helping to fuel that workforce.
I wonder, though, so for example, I was just looking at stats provided by the Albany School District, and I think you've said before that your city's about 40% foreign-born.
No, it's about 11% foreign-born, but we have about 40 languages spoken in our schools.
40 languages, my mistake. But that's a pretty high number. So in 2017, of 8th graders in Albany schools, 0% qualified. 0%, according to your stats, qualified in math.
Well,
so that seems to me like a crisis much larger than anything you're describing.
The challenges,
where the outrage is.
The challenges in our school district existed before we had the immigration that we have now.
Right. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, why? I wonder why I've never heard you as outraged about that as you are about, I don't know, enforcing federal immigration law. That seems like a crisis. Would you agree that's a crisis? 0% of 8th graders?
Well, that's absolutely right, and that is why, you know, that's another whole conversation we can have about the work that we are doing to partner with our school district and to ensure that we're turning that around, and by bringing together our institutions of higher education, our business community, you know, our healthcare, so that we are addressing those issues.
Do you think that bringing in more students who don't have English as a first language helps or hurts that?
I think that when you look at what we are doing with our new language learners, that we are having interventions that are helping them to
So it's a problem that you need to
schools.
solve. You just conceded it's a problem. You're trying to make the problem better, but it is a problem when you import people who don't speak English as a first language. Why would you add that burden to schools where 0% of 8th graders are proficient in math? 0%.
Well, first of all, that number is a little misleading because of how the testing is done.
But that's your number.
But
if you
pass the region exam, you didn't have to take the test that you're talking about. But in any event, when you look at the challenges that exist in any school district, in any urban school district, it's incumbent upon the school district and the stakeholders in that community to ensure that we are doing what we can so that these children are successful.
And
we are seeing incredible success.
It doesn't. I haven't seen those. I'm sure you're seeing some success. It's really simple. I'm not arguing against all immigrants. I'm not arguing against your schools. I'm just saying there's a crisis in your schools, obviously. Does importing more immigrants make it better? And you've conceded no, it doesn't. It's a problem that you need to solve.
I don't see it as making it better or worse. I see it as an asset to the city to see that we have the opportunity to continue to grow, to continue to have economic development.
So what's the right number then? If bringing in more people from third world countries makes Albany a better city, is good for your schools, it's good for your economy, what's the right number? How many people do you think need to come from foreign countries to Albany for you to get really rich?
So, you know, this is where the federal government needs to step up and decide what immigration policy is going to be. That happens at the federal level.
As the mayor, though, you're making the case that they make your city more prosperous, and I'm saying, what's a good number?
I would advocate to ensure that we have enough people on H-1B visas. We are we have one of the largest semiconductor manufacturing facilities in the capital region. GE's R&D center is there. I worked for a medical device manufacturer. We used H-1B visas to bring in.
We're not actually talking about H-1B visas, which is a totally different category. We're talking about poor people like the DACA recipients who are not H-1B people. They're people with lower than average educational attainment. And my simple question was, if more of poor people makes your city richer, what's the good number of poor people to bring in?
Look, I'm not talking about statistics and numbers. I'm talking about the people who are there, and I'm talking about ensuring that we continue to be a welcoming community for everyone.
Okay, well, that's a different goal. But I thought you were saying it made the city richer, and I just am skeptical. That's it. But
well, I think it's helping us to. It's definitely helping us to grow and to fill a workforce need that exists.
Well, thank you, Mayor. It's nice to see you. I appreciate you doing that. Russia, FISA, Mueller, the FBI. It's been a week of very confusing revelations in Washington. Britt Hume joins us next to explain what it all adds up to, if anything. Stay tuned. Week 4 elite consensus here in Washington. Democrats shut down the government only to belatedly realize that most Americans are not on their side. They don't think illegal immigrants are worth closing the government for. Meanwhile, Robert Mueller's investigation muddles ahead. More and more evidence suggests the FBI is too ideologically compromised, possibly too incompetent, to reach trustworthy conclusions. Are we reaching the right conclusions from these news stories? To check, we're inviting, as we always do, Fox senior political analyst Britt Hume to add some clarity to this chaotic picture. Britt, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Tucker.
So what I find so striking about
try to add some clarity.
I know that you will. That's implied, baked in the cake. But I was kind of shocked by the Schumer story this week because I think Schumer's smart and I think he pays close attention to poll numbers, as politicians ought to, I think. And yet they went way out on a limb, shut the government down over an issue that most Americans don't consider a top priority. How did they do that?
Well, I think, Tucker, my guess is that Schumer probably did not think this was a good idea.
Yeah.
And probably resisted it, but the strength of the left branch of his caucus is such that it reminded me in the end very much of what happened in 2013 with Ted Cruz and that rump group of House Republicans who were in sufficient numbers that they forced John Boehner, who was clearly reluctant, he was then Speaker, of course, to let them go forward with the strategy to shut the government down, to try to lever President Obama into undoing a big piece of Obamacare. Well, it failed utterly. The measures the House passed went nowhere in the Senate. The government shut down. The public did not like it, and the history of the public's liking government shutdowns is pretty thin. And in the end, they all had to back down. Well, this was sort of a mirror image of that. I don't think the leader liked it, but he, was a good soldier, participated in it, and in the end, they got their butts handed to them and had to back down because it did not go over well. And the members in their caucus who were up for re-election this year could sense that. And a handful of them voted no on the whole idea on the first go-round back last week. And by the end of the weekend, I think it was clear to them, at least, that they were losing, and it was could hurt them back home. And so they came out and caved in, and Schumer and the filibustering Democrats got practically nothing.
It's just remarkable, though, and Republicans seem a little out of touch with public sentiment on this, too. The new Harvard poll asked people, do you think we need less or more immigration? Overwhelmingly less. The number of Americans who want more people to come from foreign countries, and that's the consensus view in D.C. on both parties, we need more, 12% want more. I wonder why they're not aware of that. None of them seem aware of that.
Well, it depends on which piece of the immigration issue you're looking at it. The idea that you want more immigrants than we're now getting, I think is, that's not popular, as you suggest. But when you break out the DACA piece of it,
right?
And of course these are people who. Did you hear that voice behind me? That was Alexa. I managed, Tucker, to wake Alexa up with something.
Wait, so you're saying Amazon is monitoring this conversation?
Yeah, Amazon, and I ask her all the time. I say, Alexa, are you spying on me? Listen. She didn't answer. Oh, I can understand that. Anyway, you look at DACA. This is a subset of the immigrants in this country illegally who came here, as we've all heard said, through no fault of their own when they were young, when they were minors. And there's a case to be made that these people are worthy of some sympathy. They've never known any other place but America as home. And to send them back to some place they've never been seems unfair. And I think most Americans, that issue polls pretty well. And it seems that there's bipartisan support for that. And then there's the question of what you do about the illegals who are already here. And their presence here is not popular, as you've suggested. But then the question becomes, is it practical to try to round them all up and send them home? And that's kind of a bridge too far. So once you get past the idea that the general idea that people don't want more immigration, and they certainly don't want more illegal immigration, it gets complicated. And of course, the president, I think, is standing on fairly solid ground from his point of view and wanting a series of border security measures to go with any measure to relieve the DACA people of their situation here, of their potential to be deported. So that's sort of where we are in this, and we got another negotiation coming up soon, and we'll see how much the Democrats are willing to give in order to get the DACA repeal undone.
I, for one, am looking forward to it. Britt Hume, thank you for the clarity on that. I appreciate it, and good luck with Alexa.
You bet. Thanks. Thank you.
An academic in California says it's time to put abortion-themed comedy on television, because that's hilarious. A supporter of that idea will be here next. An Ohio abortion clinic is encouraging people to get abortions on the grounds that it's a good parenting decision. The clinic preterm has started a campaign called My Abortion, My Life. They set up 16 billboards around Cleveland. They extol the death of unborn children with phrases like abortion is necessary, abortion is your right, and in one case, abortion is a parenting decision. Meanwhile, at UC San Francisco, purportedly still a college, a sociologist is calling on TV shows to include more abortion-related comedy in order to normalize the procedure. Dr. Robin Bryman is a psychologist, and she agrees with the billboards and the comedy idea. She joins us tonight. Dr. Bryman, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So abortion comedy, what would you say is the funny part about abortion?
I don't think they're using it as a funny thing. I think they're using it just to bring it out to make it more of a real thing, or more of a, Sorry, I can't hear.
Can you hear me, Doctor?
One sec. I don't think they're using it as for comedy. I think they're trying to destigmatize it with women.
Oh, do you say what? Why do you? And I think that sounds probably right. Why do you think there's a stigma around abortion?
Well, I think in the world there's so much stigma around it. I mean, it's a very hard decision to make for a woman. It's a no-win situation if you're put in that.
Why the stigma? I mean, why is it considered bad, do you think?
Why is it considered a stigma?
Yeah.
Well, because it's ending a life for some people.
Huh. Okay. So if you think but if you don't think it's ending a life, then there shouldn't be any stigma at all, right?
Well, it's not one way or the other. I think it's a traumatic thing that women can go through. I think it's in a way it's absolutely ending a life, and in another way you're put in a no-win situation because sometimes people have no other choice.
Okay, so then why would you? I mean, all of that. I mean, you're probably in the mainstream of views on that. Then why the impulse to make light of it, or as you said, destigmatize it in comedy, or put up billboards encouraging people to have abortions? Isn't that making light of it? Isn't that minimizing it? When, as you said, it's a very serious thing.
I honestly don't think it's making light of it. I think it's just bringing out the issue of abortion, that it's an option.
Huh. Well, is there anything about abortion that makes you personally uncomfortable?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a very hard thing for women to go through. I think it's an absolute no-win situation for women.
What does that mean, no-win situation?
In other words, it means that a woman that has an unwanted pregnancy has to make a decision. And the decision is a no-win situation. She has to end the life of an unborn baby.
I mean, I think you're right. So why do you hear people say, you know, we should celebrate it, we should convince others there's nothing wrong with it, it's not a big deal, it's a positive thing?
Oh, it's not. It's a huge deal, and it's not a positive thing. And I don't agree with that. I think it's a traumatic thing that sometimes there's no other option. And that's why I do keep saying it's a no-win situation, because it really is.
But I never hear, I mean, I guess I disagree with your last point about there's no other option, but I respect you for saying that that it is a big deal, but I keep hearing Planned Parenthood leaders, for example, say you should wear a T-shirt announcing it, and that it's a form of liberation, and not acknowledging that that there's a downside.
Well, that's their opinion. I can't speak for other people, but personally, I see so much trauma around it in my office, and it's a hard decision. But on the other hand, it's a hard decision to keep a baby that a mother doesn't or can't take care of psychologically or physically.
Yeah, no, it's a tough situation, and I think it's a first step to acknowledge that, and so I'm glad that you are. Thank you, Dr. Brown, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
The NFL had an ugly year, but doesn't seem to have learned much from it. We'll tell you about their latest national anthem-related blunder, and then the making of what may be a scandal, sounds like potentially one, around Bob Costas and his apparent firing. Details on that next. It's been a pretty tough year for the NFL, though weirdly the commissioner seems to be making more than ever. But otherwise, it's bad. Ratings are falling. Games have seen tens of thousands of empty seats. Is the league learning anything from this? Well, not so far. The NFL just rejected an ad from a veterans group that would have asked people to stand for the national anthem during the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, Bob Costas, one of the most famous sports announcers in the world, appears to have been kicked off the Super Bowl pregame show. This comes a few months after he predicted a grim future for football due to concussions. Is there a connection? Jason Whitlock would know. He hosts Speak for Yourself on FS1, and he joins us tonight. Jason, thanks for coming on. Do you think, and I don't want to be a conspiracy nut about it, but do you think there's a connection between Costas mentioning the CTE problem, the concussion problem in the NFL, and getting booted off the show?
Yeah, I think that and I want to be clear, I have a great deal of respect for Bob Costas. I think he's one of the great broadcasters of my lifetime.
Yeah.
But I think he stated that football basically kills your brain, and I think NBC has made the absolute right decision here in removing him from the Super Bowl. Listen, and I think Bob's a great broadcaster, but it's that platform, the Super Bowl, is for a celebration of a game that I think is great. It is high risk. It is a combat sport, no different than boxing, no different than UFC or mixed martial arts. There is some risk to it, but the players are very well compensated. It's a great game, and it's not a platform for a guy who is clearly anti-football.
So you think, I mean, you can't be pro-football and concerned about the brain damage it
You can absolutely
causes?
be concerned about it. I'm a former college football player.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the brain damage. But I do not think football kills your brain. I do not think that that football is so dangerous that we need to be moving away from football. Look, man, life is a game of risk.
Yeah.
Football has done many, many things for many, many people like myself. Football is partially responsible for moving me from poverty to a college campus to a successful life. Again, I think we're so caught up in concussions and we're judging football in a way we're not judging other sports. You can go to a boxing match, and when someone gets knocked out, you can stand and cheer. We've turned football, someone gets hit hard, we're all supposed to go, oh, my God, let's have a prayer vigil. Let's quit enjoying the game. Listen, football is what it is. It has nothing to be ashamed of. And again, I have a great deal of respect for Bob Costas.
No, I
but
get it.
I
It's
think
funny.
he's part of
You're
arguing
changing my opinion
the
on
concussion
this.
issue in a way that I think is unfair to football.
That's interesting. I came in with a totally different view, and you have won me over. So let's see if you can do that in the second topic. The ad, the veterans ad, encouraging people to stand for the national anthem during the Super Bowl, NFL's turned it down. Should they have?
Yeah, I think they should. I think the NFL has worked very hard to get the protest and the kneeling out of the NFL and away from that discussion as opposed to discussing football. Again, I think everyone should stand for the national anthem. I think the NFL should pass a rule requiring their players to do that. But I also think the NFL's made the right decision here. By running this ad, you risk making this the talking point rather than the game. You have worked very hard to calm the handful of players, the 1% of players that were protesting. You've fought all season to get that out of people's faces so we can get back to enjoying football. And now these guys want to come back in and reignite that controversy. I think the NFL is smart here for moving away from it.
I think you're 2 for 2. I'm shocked, actually. That never happens to me. So really quick, do you think that controversy is, in fact, over?
Not over, but it's simmering down and moving the right direction for football. The owners and players have come to an agreement. They're going to try to help the players that are legitimately concerned about social issues. They've built a platform and have financed some things that have seemed to have calmed some of the players down. That's the right thing to do. Protesting the police during the middle of the national anthem in football stadiums is not the right thing. That does not promote a healthy discussion. It does not promote healthy change. It has to be moved away from that arena and moved to a more appropriate place. And they've done that and should not risk reigniting that controversy.
Are the Patriots going to win the Super Bowl?
Yes.
I agree with everything you say. Jason Whitlock.
I'm not going to bet against Tom Brady anymore.
Good for you. You shouldn't. Thank you, Jason. That was great.
Thank you.
Talk show host Conan O'Brien says he understands Haiti. He has a deep feeling for the people of Haiti because he spent some time at an exclusive resort.